Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I have an opportunity today to work on a Jigmaster, and yeah, I've done a lot of Jigmaster ones, but this one is the Jigmaster High Speed. It's the closest thing, I guess, the Jigmaster will ever become to a newel reel. It's a double bearing, one on each side, that kind of replicate the newels, anodized aluminum spool. This one was in beautiful condition. It was sent in by Hugo, who asked me to do the annual service on it, and I'll be happy to do that and to show you how to do this. Well, you can play along if you have a Jigmaster. For the most part, the side plate work on that is going to be similar across all of the Jigmasters, but the bearings make the difference in this reel, and it is a beautiful reel. Well, if you like the art of fishing reel repair, if you like to see how reels are made, if you like to understand how they're used, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use the notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting, and you can make a decision as to whether that's a video that you would like to watch. The Jigmaster is known for its single screw take apart. The single screw take apart is not a new invention. It actually made its debut back in the 1930s by Ocean City, so it's been around a long time. And Penn decided to use it on the Jigmaster as well as on the Squidder. And, well, it's easy enough. You turn the screw counterclockwise, you pull the screw out. It only comes out a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Then twist the plate back to release it. And we can see what's, well, most of the reels that Hugo has sent are like this. They're just dry. They're not dirty, just dry. All right, the spool comes out, and we've got that one of the bearings right in the back of the case there. That's different than the bearings you would find in the normal Jigmaster. Also a little bit different is the size of the main gear for the Jigmaster and this one. This one is a bigger main gear. That's why it's called high speed. It goes faster than the 500. Okay, we're going to remove the set screw that's holding the handle screw in place. And when I take my pieces of parts off, I like to put them into a parts tray. Helps me keep track of where they are so that when it's time to install, I'm not looking for them. And I say that as my spool is sitting over here to my right hand. So let's put the spool into the frame so that, well, we don't have to worry about that. I use an aftermarket wrench. This is an Allen Tanny wrench. It has the two sizes for the most common Penn reels. The first size is for the basically the Long Beaches and Jigmasters and the like. The second size is for the 6/0 Senators and the like. We're going to take our star adjuster off now, and this hardly looks used. If it is used, it hasn't been used too much in salt water. You can see the tarnish on the metal and some of the old grease. That's just aging. I believe this reel was made in the USA, and this reel's probably 20 years old. Next up, what we want to do is remove the 4 screws that hold the bridge on. And this part is very similar to the way that the Jigmaster 500 would be. However, the 500, as I mentioned, has a little bit smaller bridge, but for the disassembly part, it's basically the same reel. Now this one, you don't have to concern yourself as much with losing the anti-reverse spring as you do with some of the other Penn reels. And that's because it's on the bridge. It's not floating in the case. Well, there's 4 screws. There's 2 different ones. There's fully threaded screws. Those will go on the bottom too. And there's partially threaded screws. Those go through the spring on the yoke, and they tie up the top end of the bridge. All right, with the screws out, we can just push down, pull out, and this is your assembly. This is your bridge assembly. Here's your spring. It's attached to the bridge for the anti-reverse dog. This is your yoke jack pinion gear and spring assembly up top. Doesn't matter which way you service it, but generally what I like to do is get at the case first. So I'm going to push down on the pinion gear, pull up on the jack, and then slide it over so that I can remove it. And we can see that there's old dried grease on the yoke on both sides that would be slowing this reel down. There's two springs. They're the yoke springs I was referencing when I was talking about the screws. And there's one bearing in the back here. First thing I'm going to do is get the old grease off of it. Second thing I like to do is test it. So I'm going to take a Phillips head screwdriver, put it in the center and make sure it turns easily, which it does. And then I'm going to spray the case with some WD-40 to mop up the little grease that has found a home attached to the side plate. As I mentioned, on the Jigmaster, this is going to come straight across here. You've got a smaller main gear, but the process, again, for one versus the other is pretty much identical. And if you learn to do one of this style of Penn reel, you can pretty much do almost all of the Penn conventional reels of the era. That's cleaned up nicely. I'm going to use the paper towel to see if I can just wipe that grease off of here. And you want to go with the softest approach possible. I can use a scrubby pad if I need to. I can use a little 4-0 steel wool if I need to. Just get the old dried grease off. You can see on the back here I'm going to use some penetrating oil to loosen that. Does a good job. I don't use penetrating oil as a lubricant. It says you can use all kinds of things, right? Stop squeaks and loosen rusted parts and free sticking mechanisms. It does that all well. It also says it lubricates it, and I don't use it as a lubrication. All right, let's show you how to put the assembly back together for the free spool release. We're going to take the two springs and put those into the cavity on each side. We're going to use some Penn fishing reel grease now. When we re-lube the reel, we want to use fishing reel greases and oils, not general oils or household greases. A little bit on the shoulders where your pinion gear is going to ride. Check the teeth on the pinion gear. I did a performance test before I started the video. The reel's running nicely. But if I felt any kind of roughness, you really want to focus on that gear. Make sure that the teeth are all uniform, not chipped or cracked or bent in any way. Center your yoke over the two springs, push down on your pinion gear, slide the jack over, and then let the mechanism rise up. On the back side of this now, we want to deal with the main gear. And one of the things I've noticed on the reels that Hugo has sent in is that there's a lot of grease under this gear sleeve here. To remove the gear sleeve, simply take an awl. I use a pick that I actually got as part of a set from Harbor Freight. Push the pin through that's located about 3/4 of the way up on that sleeve. If it doesn't, there you go. It's through now. Don't lose that. Pull up on the sleeve and off, and you can see that the sleeve and the bridge has got a lot of residual grease on it. So you want to take care to clean that up, otherwise it will drag the reel's performance down. Again, we'll do that WD-40 or penetrating oil. To me, it doesn't matter which one you're using. Put a little squirt inside because we know that there's been some greases that were hanging out on that post. So clean that up. Make sure that the back of it is clean, and then use that same cotton swab to kind of mop up all of the dirt and old grease on the bridge. Again, I opt for the least abrasive approach as best we can, but sometimes you're going to need a little bit more. And if you do, just be careful. You don't want to scar, scrape, or do anything with that that may impair the performance of the reel. I'm going to put some grease onto the main shaft, Pull up on the anti-reverse dog to get clearance. Push down on your sleeve, then reset the dog. So the only thing left then is to push the pin in. That pin is going to ride in a slot on that bridge post, and that's going to keep you tight so that it doesn't pull up and out. Sort of like the E-clip on the Ambassador reel that holds the assembly in place. Okay, we've we've greased the inside. A little bit of oil onto the anti-reverse is fine. Let's take a look at the bigger gear now. The back side of the gear, we have the washer that's going to keep that anti-reverse dog in place and keep it off the main gear. Then we have a series of drag washers here. So I'm going to fish those out. And then I'm going to use dry grease. Now if you don't have dry grease, you can go ahead and use fishing reel grease. Penn does. But I just happen to have a tub of dry grease here, so I might as well put it to good use. I dip my washer into the grease. I use my glove as a tool to kind of get it smeared up and out without getting it all over my hand. Well, we've got 3 that have a little bit of grease on there. That's probably a little bit too much. You want to wipe off the excess. If you don't wipe off the excess, when you go to tighten your drags, it's going to just squeeze it out. So you want to be able to see the crosshatch in the HD100 washers when you service those. All right, we'll put that back off to the side again. Again, check and inspect. Now, I think this has probably been the issue. If there is an issue, there's not really no issues, but they're all dried grease in these reels. So I'm going to use a hard brush. Again, another dollar store variety kind of brush, multi-pack. You can use a toothbrush or go get any of the ones that would work. It can be a wire brush, brass brush, hard brush, bristle. Just clean out the old stuff. It'll make the reel run smoother. And then I get good application of the grease. I use an artist's brush to put the grease in. Okay, when that happens, it usually means that the post here that I put in has not been all the way down. So I'm just going to take a moment to adjust that. There we go, slides right over. This is a 6 washer set. It will start with a fabric washer, then a keyed washer. It's the one with the round outside and rectangular internal. Then you're going to use your eared washer, which has the open center and 2 studs. Last washer, your second keyed washer, and then this Bellevue washer that serves as the cap washer. So again, first keyed washer, second drag, washer with the ears on it, top washer, also the keyed washer. And that essentially is the completion of the gear side. All you need to do now, take your bridge, slide it into the case, make sure that you get the clearance on the pinion gear. There's 2 studs that this will ride on, so get those studs in place. There you go, line the studs up, and then we can put the screws in, starting with one of the ones on the bottom, because you don't have to mess around with the springs and trying to center those right away. I like to alternate when I do this, and I don't like to tighten them all the way down at the beginning. I like to just get them started. You need a little bit of wiggle room from time to time. These are the screws that have the partial threads on them. Those are the ones that go through the springs up top. So I'll go ahead and bring one of those back. It looks like I have a little bit of a wrestling match on that side. So that jack doesn't always go in square. You do get to square it up, but sometimes you're going to need a little assist. So I'm going to use that same pick that I used before. We'll use that to center the hole, and then we should be able to get that to catch, which we just did. And we should have one more. And if you're wondering what's going on, just turn it around. In this case, I saw that the jack was off a little bit. Now you can see the screw is ready to come up through that hole. So let's tighten that down. So much of reel repair is simply taking the reel apart, checking the pieces and parts to make sure that they're all in good condition, removing the old dirt and greases or cleaning it, and then re-lubricating it and reassembling it. My tightening pattern is in an X shape, high, low, low, high, until they're all tightened. Give it a spin before you go do much anything else, because if it's not turning at that point, you haven't done something correct. If you haven't done something correct, pause, take the time to go back. Don't be afraid that you're wasting time by taking the whole assembly off again. You're liable to break something if it's not turning correctly and you just want to soldier on there. We've oiled the back bearing. I put a little bit of grease onto the two shafts on the spool. And while I have that spool out, I'm going to just use a cleaner to get to the inside, because that's about the only time you can do that. I'm using Penn rod and reel cleaner. We'll come inside, and even though it's a beautiful reel with minimal dirt or debris in this one, let it serve as an example if nothing else. Okay, the frame is pretty much done. Let's take our spool and reseat that. Now we're going to reverse the installation of this. So parts that came off last go on first. I started with that gear sleeve spacer. Now we'll put the star adjuster on. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and something doesn't make sense, just leave those questions in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. I'm using a screwdriver just to hold the gear sleeve steady as I put the star adjuster on. Now I can use the star adjuster as a handle to complete the process, or the handle as the wrench. With that on, let's go ahead and put the handle screw on. Thread these by hand. You don't want to cross strip them. And get your wrench. Tighten it down the remaining turns. Of course, I use an aftermarket wrench, but the wrench that comes with the Penn Jigmaster certainly is going to work. And if that's what you have, the only thing you're going to find is sometimes it tends to slip off and get trapped underneath. This one's a little thicker, so it doesn't trap. There's only one screw left in my parts tray, and that's the set screw for that handle screw. Let's go ahead and put that back in. Those of you that know me know me and little screws don't play well together sometimes. This guy's being a little bit of a rogue. There we go. I think we got it now. Also been asked what screwdriver I use. This is an electrician's screwdriver. It's got the rubber shield on it. I believe it's 3/16 up top. It's just short of a 1/4 inch, and it tends to work very well on Penn reels. I also like the shielding because you can grab it and twirl it to take the screws out. Makes it a little bit easier on the hand. When I go to reinstall the gear side plate, I like this in a neutral position, or taking it out for casting mode. That way it doesn't bind up. Just simply line it up, push in so that you feel the studs, and you'll see the screw pops out. Again, that little turn there. check the back end. You should see that the screw's lining up with the hole. And then tighten the screw down. Give it a test, make sure everything works fine. As I mentioned at the start of this is a beautiful reel, well designed. Truly a pleasure to fish with. Make sure your free spool runs nice and quiet. The bearings are in beautiful condition, as is the reel. And because I've worked on that drag washer and some of the other things, I've gotten grease on my glove. I'll use a paper towel. This still has the residue left over. There's plenty of it on there from the rod and reel cleaner. So I'll use that just to kind of mop up anything that I've left on the reel. And this one's ready to go fishing. Hugo, thank you for sending it in. It's a beautiful example of a reel that should be treasured. And you've obviously taken care of it. And it's an example of what good maintenance does in promoting the longevity of fishing reels. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do to keep us safe. I truly appreciate your career choices and your dedication to task. To everyone, keep your reels serviced and ready to go. To a lot of us, the season's starting to wind down now. This is a perfect time in the coming weeks to service those reels so that they're ready to go when the season opens again. And it's a good way to make sure that if you've been fishing salt water in particular, that you get all that dirt and salt residue and that out of there so that it doesn't harm the reel during the layovers. So everybody, please enjoy your time on the water and have a great day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.